There was a time when the name Mitsubishi meant something powerful. It meant rally stages, turbo whistles, all-wheel drive grip, and cars that punched far above their weight. It meant the Lancer evolution hunting supercars on back roads, the 3000 GT VR4 doing things no one thought a Japanese coupe could do, and the Eclipse becoming a pop culture icon. Mitsubishi wasn't just another car company. It had attitude. It had ambition. It had soul. Fast forward to 2026, and that identity feels like a distant memory. Today, Mitsubishi still exists, but in a way that feels strangely hollow. Not broken, not bankrupt, just quiet. While the rest of the auto industry is locked in a loud arms race of electrification, performance branding, and tech-driven reinvention, Mitsubishi seems to be standing in the corner, hoping no one asks what it brought to the party. This isn't a hate piece. It's something worse, an autopsy of a brand that didn't crash spectacularly, but slowly faded out while the engine was still running. A car industry that moved on without them. The global car market in 2026 is aggressive. Even traditionally conservative manufacturers are swinging for relevance. Toyota revived its fun side with GR models. Hyundai went from bargain brand to performance disruptor almost overnight. Ford leaned hard into heritage and muscle, while General Motors slapped performance trims on nearly everything with 4 wheels. Personality is currency now, and brands that don't project one get ignored. Mitsubishi, unfortunately, walks into this environment with a lineup that feels unfinished. The brand's North American identity has been reduced to a short list: the Outlander PHEV, the Eclipse Cross, and the Mirage. No sedan, no hatchback, no sports car, no halo product, no emotional anchor. Just crossovers, compliance, and survival. The Outlander. The Outlander has become Mitsubishi's entire public face, whether the company likes it or not. And to be fair, it isn't a bad vehicle. It's competently styled, reasonably comfortable, and dependable. It starts every morning. It carries people and groceries. It does exactly what it promises. The problem is that fine doesn't build loyalty. Underneath, the Outlander rides on shared architecture developed alongside Nissan, which immediately signals where Mitsubishi stands in the alliance hierarchy. This isn't a bespoke vision of the brand's future. It's a pragmatic solution designed to reduce cost and risk. That's not inherently wrong, but it's telling. The interior is a noticeable improvement over older Mitsubishis, no longer resembling something assembled during an economic downturn with leftover consumer electronics plastic. But being the best Mitsubishi interior ever made is a low bar. Improvement isn't the same as inspiration. The accidental success of the Outlander PHEV. If Mitsubishi has one genuine bright spot in 2026, it's the Outlander PHEV, and even that feels unintentional. The plug-in hybrid Outlander succeeds not because it's revolutionary, but because it arrives at exactly the right moment. It offers usable electric range, standard all-wheel drive, reasonable efficiency, and qualifies for incentives in several markets. For everyday buyers navigating fuel costs, emissions regulations, and tightening budgets, it makes sense. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't buy the Outlander PHEV because they love it. They buy it because it checks boxes. Nobody dreams about owning one. Nobody had a poster of it on their wall. Nobody says, one day, that's my car. They say, this works. And brands that survive long-term don't survive on practicality alone. They survive on desire. A name that should have stayed dead. Few decisions illustrate Mitsubishi's identity crisis better than the Eclipse Cross. Once, the Eclipse name represented turbocharged excitement, all-wheel drive grip, and genuine enthusiast appeal. It was a car you wanted, a car that mattered. In 2026, that name is attached to a compact crossover with a sloping roofline and zero emotional connection to its past. The Eclipse Cross isn't fast. It isn't engaging. It isn't particularly striking. It feels like it was designed by committee after someone Googled "what do young buyers like" and stopped reading halfway through. The issue isn't that the Eclipse Cross exists. It's that Mitsubishi chose to revive a legendary name and strip it of everything that made it meaningful. That decision doesn't just disappoint enthusiasts, it actively reminds them of what they lost. It feels less like branding and more like automotive gaslighting. The Mirage. Then there's the Mirage, the most uncomfortable part of Mitsubishi's lineup, and oddly, the most honest. On paper, it's indefensible. Minimal power. Cheap materials. A CVT that sounds like it's reconsidering its life choices every time you touch the throttle. At highway speeds, refinement becomes a suggestion rather than a feature. And yet, it still exists in 2026. Why? Because it's cheap. Because it's new. Because it comes with a long warranty. And because for certain buyers, teachers, gig workers, people rebuilding credit, that matters more than performance, prestige, or passion. The Mirage is transportation in its purest form, a modern-day Geo Metro. This will get me through the next phase of my life car. The tragedy isn't that the Mirage is slow. It's that this is what Mitsubishi allows to represent the brand. Why just bring back the Evo isn't that simple. Every discussion about Mitsubishi eventually arrives at the same demand: bring back the Evo. Enthusiasts aren't wrong. The Lancer evolution was extraordinary. It was a performance benchmark. It was a legend. It was also a financial disaster. The Evo didn't make Mitsubishi money. Neither did the Lancer, the 3000 GT, or most of the brand's engineering showcases. They built reputation, not profit. And they did it at a time when Mitsubishi Motors was already dealing with scandals, recalls, and internal instability. When the global economy tightened, Mitsubishi didn't have Toyota's financial cushion, Honda's scale, or Subaru's fiercely loyal cult following. The company faced a brutal choice: passion or survival. They chose survival. A brand no longer centered on cars. Part of the explanation lies in corporate reality. Mitsubishi Motors is no longer the crown jewel of its parent ecosystem. The real money lives elsewhere, in ships, heavy machinery, infrastructure, and defense projects under Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Cars are no longer the mission. They're just a division that needs to not lose money. So Mitsubishi doesn't ask what excites drivers. It asks what can be built cheaply, sold globally, and supported across emerging markets with minimal risk. The answer is always the same: crossovers. This is how brands fade. Not through failure, but through cautious optimization. The real loss: identity. What makes Mitsubishi's decline hurt more than most isn't market share or sales figures. It's history. This brand once stood for rally dominance, mechanical creativity, and a willingness to be weird. Names like Evo, Galant Verfour, Starion, Pajero, and 3000 GT weren't just products. They were identities. In 2026, Mitsubishi doesn't have an identity. It has incentives. Dealers will work with you. Discounts are generous. Financing is flexible. And that's why jokes about Mitsubishi disappearing in 10 years persist. Not because the cars are unsafe or unreliable, but because they're forgettable. In the automotive world, forgettable is fatal. Quiet isn't the same as dead, but it's close. Mitsubishi hasn't collapsed. It hasn't imploded. It hasn't gone out in flames. It simply went quiet. And that's almost worse. In an era where even conservative brands are trying to stand for something, Mitsubishi exists in a narrow space between relevance and obscurity, kept alive by fleet sales, global markets, and buyers who just need transportation. For those who remember what Mitsubishi once was, that reality isn't just disappointing. It's heartbreaking. Because this wasn't a brand that failed spectacularly. It was a brand that slowly forgot why anyone cared. So yeah, in 2026, Mitsubishi might not be broken, but it definitely feels forgotten. Not because every car is terrible, but because none of them make you feel anything at all. And in a world where even boring brands are trying, that silence is the loudest failure of all. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, like and subscribe for more honest car videos every week.